Alright, welcome back. So today we have ERLANG SHEN here. Now he's not like most other warriors, he's actually pretty basic attack oriented, so with that being said, his build is just a little bit different from most other warriors. So let's jump into it, starting with the starter items. For ERLANG SHEN, if you are jungling as him, you probably just want to go into Bumba's Mask. However, if you are laning, you just want to go into Death's Toll. Death's Toll works really well on basic attack oriented guys, just like ERLANG SHEN himself. As well as another important note is ERLANG SHEN's attack progression. The fourth attack in his attack progression hits all enemies in a melee range, meaning once you do that, you get a nice little burst of health and mana back thanks to the help of Death's Toll. So let's go into boots. Warrior type of boots is a pretty common option to go into. You might see this if you go into Ninja Tabby after you have your entire build. So you finished all your items you wanted, go back, sell Warrior Tabby for a Ninja Tabby, so that way you get the increased attack speed. And the reason why you might do that is because once you have your full build on, you have all the items to help augment the strength of your basic attacks, like the Shin Size, the Frostbound Hammer, maybe the Stone Cutting Sword, maybe Executioner, and so that additional attack speed from Ninja Tabby can really help those other items out. So you might look forward to do something like that. However, it's for the most part kind of personal preference if you want to go to Warrior or Ninja Tabby boots. So moving on from here, if you're playing him in the solo lane, it's pretty common to pick up the Breastplate of Valor right after your boots. Reason being, he's still a warrior, he still gets a good benefit from cooldown reduction, as well as it's fairly cheap for the massive amount of physical protection you get. And it's pretty common in the solo lane for it to be a warrior versus warrior. If it's not another warrior fighting, it's probably an assassin or hunter. Now, of course, there are cases where you might be fighting a magical god in the solo lane. If that is the case, obviously you don't want to go to Breastplate of Valor. It won't really help you out at all. Instead, you might go into what's seen as the magical protection equivalent of Breastplate of Valor, and that is the Genji's Guard. Again, very cheap for a lot of magical protection. It has a cooldown reduction to it. It's not, it's not 20%, but it's 10%. But the passive also allows you to help reduce your ability cooldowns once you can proc it. So you might look into that. But let's say if you're fighting not just any magical god in the solo lane, it's actually a healer, like Aphrodite, Chang'e, or Hel, then obviously you just want to go into the Pestilence item, so that way you can also reduce their healing. So those are your few different options to go into, but for the most case, you just go into the Breastplate of Valor after you boots. Of course, again, if you're fighting a physical god. After this point, this is where you can be a little bit free with your build. Some might go straight into the Kin Size, into the Frostbound Hammer, which, firstly, these are two very good items for ERLANG SHEN. Again, he has very basic attack base, and these two items really, they're really good on those type of gods. So what's cool about the Frostbound Hammer, then I go to the Shins, but what's really cool with Frostbound Hammer, again, it provides you with a lot of HP, which is pretty much seen as the downside to Breastplate of Valor, is that it has all this protection but no health, and Frostbound Hammer obviously gives you that. But what's cool about ERLANG SHEN is once you use this one, his first ability, this might be taken off in the future, I don't know, but once you use this, you don't have a movement penalty when you're basic attacking. Basically, when you use this, his first ability, you have the same effect as Haste and Metalis. Now, if you also have Frostbound Hammer, now not only do you have no movement penalty when you're actually attacking, you're also slowing the enemy by 30% and also reducing their attack speed by 15% for 1.25 seconds. So with that being said, they can't really get away with you between using your one and your Frostbound Hammer. And again, let's say your first ability isn't up by the time, you can still kind of keep on them with the help of the Frostbound Hammer. So it's very important to do that. Like for a lot of basic attack type gods, it's very important to really just stick to your target, or else you're not really doing a whole lot. So that is a very important item for ERLANG SHEN. Now going to the Shins or Kins, however you want to pronounce it, again, it just really feeds off of basic attack oriented gods because of the passive. You hit them, you do additional damage equivalent to 4% of the target's maximum health. That is just huge. So between that and the additional attack speed that you get from your third ability and Frostbound Hammer to ensure you can stick to your target, it's just a lot of damage overall that you're just doing, just all with your basic attacks. And then another item that you can go into, well, from here, after you have these few items, which are pretty much seen as the core items for ERLANG SHEN, it's almost situational building from here, right? Let's say if you have a good lead and the mages on the enemy team aren't giving you a hard time, then you might go to more damaging items like let's say the stone cutting sword, which is a really good item for Erlang Shen and gods like him that are very basic attack based that are also melee. Reason being, it's a little expensive, but it provides you with a lot of physical power, additional movement speed, so not only are you slowing them with Frostbound Hammer and you're sticking to them with your first ability, you also have increased movement speed, so there's no way they're getting away, and this can really allow you to chase down targets as well. But when you go ahead and using your auto attacks on the target, you basically steal their physical protections and gain it to yourself. So you gain up to 30 additional physical protection, as well as reducing their physical protections by 30, which is kind of almost seen as a penetration item in itself. So it's a really good item. You can probably do something like this if you have a really good lead and the mages are not giving you trouble. However, if the mages are, you know, bursting you down and they're giving you a hard time, then you might look into buying a magic protection item, such as Borg of Hope can be really helpful. With this item, not only can you proc a shield with a passive on Borog, when you go ahead and use a turtle form, you also get a little bonus health shield. So ideally you have 2 shields if you can use it right. So you can go into that if you want a hybrid item, not really a hybrid item, but like an item that has both physical and magic protection and cooldown reduction. All 3 really good stats for a majority of the warriors. You could probably look at your Mantle Discord, or the cheaper version would be the Spirit Robe. So those are some items that you can go into. Now, of course, you still have your star item to sell, so you could probably do something like this. You go into your Borg of Hope, so that way you can be a little bit more tankier, ensure that you can survive, especially with Erlang Shen. When you use your ultimate, you're taunting multiple enemies, so you don't want to be too squishy where you have like all these attack items and no defensive items. So once you taunt somebody, you can just get bursted down yourself. So it's pretty important to have some type of defensive items on you, or at least health items. So you can go back, so you start an item, regardless of which one you picked, and you can go back and pick up another item that you want to pick earlier, like let's say Stone Cutting Sword. So you can do something like this, or let's say if you went into Stone Cutting Sword instead of the Borg of Hope in this item slot right here, then you can sell your starter item for that Borg of Hope. You can mix and match how you want to. So you can run something like this. This way you can have a good amount of both power, you have a decent amount of attack speed, you have movement speed, you have physical and magical protection, as well as when you go ahead and use your auto attacks, once you have all 3 landed on your target, you have 30 additional physical protection. That way you can go ahead and fight those hunters and those assassins, and you can trade blows and still be fairly tanky yourself. Now let's say if you don't want Stone Cutting Sword but you still want penetration, then you might look into other penetration items such as the Executioner, which is pretty good nowadays. It's only 3 stacks, it's no longer 4 stacks like it was early on. If you don't want that, maybe Time's Bane is a better option for you, or you can go to a hybrid item. You can go to something like Void Shield, so that way you still have, you know, you have a little bit more physical protection, you get a little bit more power, and the artifact is almost seen as like a penetration in itself, so you can go into something like that if you want to. So that is pretty much it for the most part. Again, most warriors are very flexible with their builds, so some people might like their warriors a little bit more tankier, so you might look into more tankier options like the Mantle Discord, maybe Hide the Urchin, maybe Midgardian, whatever you need. And as far as relics go, for the purpose of conquest, most warriors that are playing in the soul lane will often get the teleport relic. This allows you to get back to the soul lane fairly quickly. So let's say you have this and the enemy soul laner doesn't. This allows you to gain a really huge lane pressure and just lane control overall, since you can be back to lane a lot faster than they can. So that way you can take control of their buff camps and just put a lot of pressure on. And also another reason why is the soul lane is actually fairly far from the fountain, so it's a quite long walk to get back. And the other relics are very just situational to whatever you might need. Like Erlang Shen, I don't think he's CC immune during his ultimate. No, he's not. So he is not CC immune at any point in his lifetime, so you might consider going to Purification to help you out there, so that way you just don't get locked down. So that's going to wrap it up. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.